So I was perusing Instagram the other day, and I was on this colorist page where they talk about using presets on photos and color theory and all that stuff. And I found this photo I really liked, and I was starting to read the comments, and the amount of comments with people saying, oh, I bought some presets and they don't look like they did on the other person's photos, or I bought presets and they're horrible, and all these things like just edit photos every time. I was like, what? That doesn't make any sense to me. I've always used presets. And I was like, maybe it's because people don't actually know how to use presets, especially when they buy them from someone else who's designed them on their photos. Maybe they just don't know how to use them, how to edit them properly. So, you came to the right place. I'm gonna teach you how to work through a preset as if you just bought it from someone and you slap on your phone and you're like, that doesn't look like it did. Teach you how to make it so it looks good on your photos. Let's just go to the computer right now. So now that we're in Lightroom, I'm gonna show you how I work with a preset from top to bottom, because a preset is just a starting point. You still need to work through every image individually because every image is different. And a preset is more just a way to guarantee that your photos kind of have a stylistic look that's consistent from photo to photo. Okay, so now that we have this one, I'm gonna choose bronze because I already kind of know how this preset is gonna affect this image. And already we can tell that her skin tones are pretty reddish. We're coming from a pretty greenish looking image, so it's a little bit of a harsh contrast. But already I can see, I know what I need to do. Our blues are looking a little bit teal and her skin's looking a little orange. So I know kind of what we're gonna do. So first thing I'm gonna do is, because our original image was more of a green, I'm gonna come up here to our tint and I'm going to pull it more to the green side. You need to be very careful with tint because it's pretty strong. So that's already quite a bit better. I think I'm gonna warm up the image ever so slightly. You can see that already it's oversaturating her hair a little bit, but I'm just gonna leave that for now. I think that's a better starting point. It's still pretty heavy edit. Okay, so now I'm gonna come down. I'm gonna work within our sliders here. So one thing I'm noticing is there's quite a bit of contrast. I don't like using the contrast slider. If you guys have seen one of the reels I make, I talk about how you can add contrast without using the slider. So I'll deal with contrast later, but I want to bring down the saturation of it because her hair is starting to get pretty heavily saturated. And I'll come back in and I'll add saturation back into her face. As you can see, we're losing a little bit of it. Yeah, she's looking a little pale, so I'll bring it up a little bit and then bump the vibrance. So the difference between saturation and vibrance adds adds color back into the image where it thinks it needs it. Saturation is just an overall color bump in the whole image. So I always bring my saturation down and then let vibrance kind of pick and choose. So that's looking okay. Okay, so now I'm gonna come down, I'm gonna adjust the contrast. So I'm gonna come into here, I'm gonna dial back the shadows a little bit. And that's not too bad. The image is still looking pretty desaturated, but that's kind of the look I think I'm gonna go for anyway. If I bring this down just a hair, that looks a little bit better. Okay, so now I want to address her skin. So one thing we can do is, obviously we can bump the saturation of her skin, but the problem with that is it's gonna start looking pretty yellow because her hair is surrounding her face, and that's gonna give a slight glow to her face because the light's it's a really soft light, and it's gonna come in and it's gonna affect her skin tones. So I wanna be very careful with that. So one thing you can do if you're trying to play with your skin tones is come to the luminance values. And so our skin tones lay in the orange side, so I'm gonna play with that. But if you want a deeper color, obviously crank it down to the darker section here. And if you want a lighter color, and you get a little more detail with a darker color. So I'm gonna bring it down a little bit, and you can see how that is really affected. So it's up here, it affects her hair obviously a lot more than her skin, but it brings her skin down to a really natural shadows, because when you have it right here, it's kind of, her chin starts to glow and all the shadows get brought up unnaturally. So I'm gonna bring it down, and it makes her face just look so much more even. It's starting to look a little bit better. So that's pretty much like kind of how I approach it. So that's the luminance. I'm gonna be very careful. I'm gonna bump the saturation of her face a little bit. And because her hair kind of matches her face and her hair lays in the orange slider, I need to be very, very careful. Because even though I'm bringing up her skin tones, it's gonna affect her face quite a bit. Okay, so now I know, looking back and forth, I know there's one more thing I need to adjust. So I'm gonna come all the way to the bottom and come to your calibration. So the blue primary affects the image like this. So as you can see there, this is a really extreme example of kind of what was going on in the beginning. So obviously we're gonna dial that back. Obviously that's too much dialed back, it's too green. This is what it looks like on the other side. So we wanna bring that down ever so slightly, and I'm gonna bring down the saturation also. So that's gonna obviously drop the saturation of our image quite a bit, but we can fix that. This is just like a base calibration of kind of figuring it out. There we go. Okay, so now we're gonna come back up to the top, and we're gonna add the saturation back in that we took out. Bring that up, I'll bring the vibrance up, and that's actually looking pretty good. As you can see, we're kind of more back to that greenish that we were before, and the blues are still relatively the same. Obviously they're a little more pale and not quite as deep. That's pretty good. Okay, so let's choose another image. I'm gonna choose one that has quite a bit more color and more like light. So I'm gonna choose this one right here. So let's go, I'm trying to choose one that's a really extreme kind of example. So I think I'll go with ice blue. As you can see, our image is crazy saturated, and I don't usually run crazy saturation like this on my images. So let's work through this. Obviously, it looks like our white balance and our tint are pretty okay, so let's just adjust our exposure. I like to adjust my exposure globally. You can go into highlights and shadows and stuff, and as you can see, I've pulled the shadows up in this preset. But what happens if you go too crazy, you get kind of an HDR look, and I'm not a big fan of that. I like my images to look as natural as possible. So I just adjust the exposure overall, and if our whites start to get too white, then I'll just pull it back a little bit. But as you can see up here on our histogram, we look pretty okay. Okay, so two things I want to address are the blues. They're very, very saturated, and our greens. They're very, very green. I'm gonna keep the greens more green than I usually do because sometimes it's fun to have greens, and because of the blue and the green, it's a nice combo. But they're still crazy. So this preset already has our saturation brought down quite a bit. So let's just go in and do it individually. So I'm gonna take our greens, I'm gonna pull our greens back quite a bit. Maybe not so much. Maybe I'll go about here. So that's not too bad there. And then I'm gonna bring up the luminance so it lightens up the color. And that's not too bad right there. So it's not this crazy deep fluorescent green. Now the greens are a little bit blue in my opinion, so I'm going to come to the greens here and go more to the green side. There we go, that's good. Okay, let's address the blues now. Right in here you can see that the blues are crazy, like really, really blue. So let's get rid of that right away. Let's go down. And just a little click, bring it down. It looked like it was bumped in the preset, so bring it down, and that looks much more balanced. Now, one problem is her skin tones are looking pretty pale, and I think that I'll be able to fix it just in here. I want to be careful though, because a lot of this image has orange like around it, like the center of these flowers and the edges of these flowers will have orange. And if you go too crazy, like if I max out the orange slider here, that's not the right orange slider. If I max this one out here, you can see that the chromatic aberration right here gets crazy, and you can see your skin tone's already way too much. So I'm gonna pull that back. I'm gonna keep going a little bit until that looks better. So the image overall is actually looking really balanced. I think it's a little crooked, so obviously we want to fix that. So yeah, I think that's actually not too bad. It's a pretty heavy edit. Like you can see when I go in here, you can see that there's quite a bit of grain in this preset. But overall, I think that's a pretty stylistic edit and it doesn't look too bad, and we were able to fix it. I'm gonna do one more image and try to find another extreme so we can work through it together. Okay, so we got this image here. I want to choose this one because of our subject is mostly in shadow. There's a couple little highlight specks on her, but not much. And I'm gonna come back to bronze because as you can see right here, it adds quite a bit of redness to our shadows, and I want to show you how you can fix that. So the image is overall well exposed, but what you can do is just bringing up the exposure is going to even out that redness. So if we go before and after, you can see the concrete still has like the same color now. The image is still pretty red again, so we're gonna fix that. Okay, so the first thing obviously I try to do is the tint, because the tint is very powerful. And that, like I said in the first image, just be super careful with it. And you can see I just adjusted it like what was it, 18 to 16, and that already feels much better. What we're gonna do is we're gonna come back down to the bottom and just kind of adjust the blue primary again. I'm gonna be very slow with it. That's not too bad right there. And like, we want to still keep some of those reddish colors in it, like in the shadows and a little bit on her skin, because that's part of the preset, right? Like, that's why I made this one. But we don't want it to be so overwhelming that it just looks like we just botched the image. That's the one thing with images, is if you're more subtle and you're very careful with your intentions, then the image will just look better overall. So I'm just gonna see how her skin's looking. Her skin's looking really good. Okay, so that image is looking pretty good overall. It's well balanced. I'm seeing one thing I'm gonna fix is, because it's pretty extreme, is the desaturation of the greens back here. I'm just gonna bring them up a little bit more. I have them pretty down. I might actually bring them up a little bit, and then I'll, oh man, how do I want it? Yeah, I think that's what I'll do, is I'll bring down the luminance, and that'll help a little bit. So yeah, that's it. I'm pretty happy with that. Yeah, and I think that's it. That's all I need to do to it. And yeah, guys, that's how I work with my presets. Every photo is different, so you have to like take the time and work through each one and just play around with it. Even if you don't fully understand how to like edit and how everything works, just push sliders around. You'll figure it out, and that's one of the funnest things you can do with images. And like, I think it's actually a really good idea to go out and buy a preset or a preset pack from photographers you like, because you can actually learn quite a bit. That's why I've kind of come up with my own looks and learned how to do certain things, because of seeing, oh, this person does this with that? Oh, that's really interesting. Well, what if I do it kind of like this and incorporate that into mine? I think they're super valuable and they're great tools, especially if you're trying to achieve your look. Creating presets is like so important so that your photos stay consistent and look consistent. So yeah, guys, that's it for me. I hope you enjoyed, maybe you learned a little something, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.